Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Peter Mueller, and I, along with my Scale Hub colleague, Susanna Richter-Wills, will be leading today's webinar, Simple Ways to Streamline Data Extraction from Forms with AI and HI. I'm going to begin by covering some macro trends in the industry, as well as discussing forms in a general sense, and define what we mean by forms, and go over why are they still in the mix as a relevant topic even. I'm going to pass it off to Susanna then to summarize how collective intelligence, which is the combination of AI with HI, human intelligence, benefits the overall talent pool mix while also delivering faster and more accurate outputs for your customers. With this stage set, we'll introduce and speak with our guest, Craig Dodson. He's the Director of Financial Aid Solutions at Community Brands. Craig and I will discuss his real-world experiences with processing forms using collective intelligence and how it has changed the outcomes for Community Brand staff and, importantly, financial aid applicants. Note that today's webinar will be recorded and will be shared with all registrants. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat threads, either in LinkedIn or YouTube, and we will answer in the Q&A session during the last 10 minutes. With that, let's get started. So what are some of the macro trends that we are seeing? And in particular, what trends are we seeing as it relates to large-scale business processing at BPOs, global business services, shared service centers, and enterprises of all types? For all of these groups, they must continually strive to solve stubborn business problems aimed at addressing the customer experience and customer satisfaction, which in turn feeds into the goals of meeting ever-increasing customer expectations and achieving high customer retention rates. In order to find solutions to solve difficult business problems, we will focus on 3 trends that can help. Continually work to win the talent war, stay engaged on extreme automation methods, and continue to be agile with service offerings by bringing in new tech and expanded services. Let's start by talking through the talent war and the concern of workforce scarcity. Per the Shared Services and Outsourcing Network, among shared service centers and global business services, a main risk factor is workforce attrition and scarcity of qualified workers, with 44% of respondents listing it as their #1 concern in SSON's Trends and Insights report for 2023. Also, SSON reported that employees moving around from one global business service, BPO, or shared service center to another is quite common, with an average churn rate of 26%. So what are some ways to hold on to this talent? The report stated that organizations must zero in on removing mundane, repetitive work for their teams. The way to think about work and tasks should be removing this kind of work so that talent is focused on providing more meaningful and results-oriented outcomes. The thought here is that when there is an opportunity to upskill your employees to higher value tasks, coupled with making their work less monotonous, you should do it. Such an approach, the report states, will improve the overall employee experience and in turn reduce churn. Having productive, fulfilled resources is now a differentiator among companies and is a great approach to hold on to top talent. So what are some ways to hold on to talent? But how does using extreme automation for assisting workers and reducing mundane, repetitive work really fit with workers' expectations? The initial reaction from many is that extreme automation is going to come and replace our jobs. We hear that a lot. However, what it has done, as one study has stated, is taken the robot out of the person, so to speak, as it handles the parts of the work that people dread. This study by Bain & Company, entitled Overcoming the Automation Paradox, showed, in fact, that 86% of workers declare a high willingness to use automation in their work. The digitization and combined automations included in end-to-end business process journeys is allowing workers to spend their time on higher value tasks, such as customer interactions and strategic work. Moving closer to extreme automation makes it so that global business services, shared service centers, and BPOs will have to spend significantly less time downloading bits of paper, and Excel spreadsheets and can shift their focus towards connecting in human intelligence with the customer needs. Overall, employees are ready and willing for their human intelligence to be augmented with technology and automation to drive better, faster business outcomes. A final trend to share is the increasing and persistent need for greater agility to adapt to new business models. An agile approach means rapidly enhancing the fit between the service offered and evolving customer needs, which requires accelerating the speed of delivery while continuing to nurture innovation. Coming out of the COVID era, the Everest Group found that of 5 key business challenges cited, adapting to new business models was the only challenge ranked the same in both 2020 and 2021, and ranked as the #1 business challenge at that. In order to continue to add value, shared service centers, global business services, and BPOs will need to up their ambition when it comes to their offered service lines by providing more advanced and more customized solutions for their organizations, which will help them gain a competitive edge. Also, becoming more agile means taking advantage of new and emerging technologies such as AI, machine learning, and big data analytics to optimize operations and offer more comprehensive services. How agile these groups are in adapting can be the biggest difference in continuing to grow and achieve results. So, how do all these macro trends that I've just shared connect with today's topic of streamlining data extraction from forms? Takeaways here are that adapting to new business models with customized services is a need to stay relevant and is one that requires an agile approach, which means bringing in emerging technologies. Extreme automation tools added to the mix that work side by side with humans to reduce monotonous and mundane work, think forms processing here, will allow higher value work to be tasked out, improving the overall customer experience and customer retention rates. Taken together, these approaches can enhance the employee experiences and assist in retaining top talent. Now let's dive into what we mean by forms and the challenges we continue to see with processing them. So when we talk about forms, what do we mean? Forms are a defined document type and have a fixed, consistent structure and placement of fields. They are highly structured and concise. For example, single page, sometimes more than one page, limited number of fields to capture, little to no variation, and contain easily validated data. It may also include table data, signature blocks, barcodes, OMR boxes, but all in a definable location. Below here are some examples of forms with many more out there in the world. We just listed some smattering of some to give you an idea of some of the types of documents we're talking about. So why are we still talking about forms? OCR has been around for decades as a well-established tool for capturing data off documents, and given that history, shouldn't we be living with perfect outputs by now from OCR automation tools for forms processing? The truth is, limitations persist that we have never been able to solve. OCR capture technology is often error-prone and notorious for creating more work and exception handling downstream. Traditional OCR capture technologies have difficulty in capturing fields and extracting data due to all manner of quality issues. Think about poor input images from mobile uploads, bad photocopies or scans from damaged paper, faxes, yes, we still see these, and they're super prevalent, and scans coming in with low DPI settings. Also, specialized content in forms, say handwriting, multiple language requirements, tables, nested tables, OMR boxes, wonky customized formatting. In addition, there are wildcards that can be inherently hard to read, such as watermarks, notary stamps, logos, or customized formatting like highlighted fields or color gradients. So even with a structured form, it can still prove to be hard and time-consuming to configure for automation. What we're all looking for and hoping for in the end is to input drama-free forms, as we call them. That is, forms with less complexity and variability that provide consistent, reliable outputs. OCR capture technologies can often excel at forms, even with specialized content and formatting issues with proper configuration, of course. But what we're going to talk about today and using collective intelligence, take it to the next level by perfecting the so-called drama-free forms, processing them even faster and more accurately than OCR and capture solutions alone. Now let's talk about resourcing for forms processing. Even with solid automation rates for forms processing, there may be volume spikes or new document variations that are introduced into the mix. Can the given resources, both technology and human workers, handle this nimbly? Also, can there be immediate scaling up or down and elasticity of operations even during volume spikes? For example, during seasonal fluctuations, think about tax season or when financial aid packets are submitted and answers are needed quickly. During these peaks in volume, quality cannot be sacrificed when using a standard OCR AI technology. The focus needs to be on how forms can be processed faster and with near 100% accuracy and shorter time to deployment model to reduce cost as well as avoiding rapid firing and hiring of staff. Now, we have the ability to address automation challenges and resource volatility, which is super important. But for most organizations, what is paramount is protecting the data and being in compliance with industry standards or any regulatory demands. Yes, still being on point to process high value data quickly is important, but doing so with privacy and security must be top of mind. We call this VIP data, and it feeds high value processes, for example, bank account openings, insurance claims, healthcare documents, financial aid applications, just to name a few. The standard approach out there is to rely on manual human review to ensure the sanctity of the data and process. But how can VIP data for forms be approached in a different way? Using collective intelligence and a scalable workforce, VIP data can be decontextualized and anonymized away from its source document before it moves forward for processing to protect data and be in compliance. The goal here is processing millions of forms and in various fields a day with fast turnaround times, regardless of input, volatility of peaks and troughs in volumes, and keeping the VIP data safe and in compliance. So we are still talking about forms processing because problems still exist with forms processing. The form, in theory, should be the easiest kind of document to process since it is, by its very nature, structured content. But problems still exist. From a service level standpoint, where there is increasing demand in all industries for accurate and timely data extraction, we need to respond quickly with service levels. Getting data out of documents efficiently is often an obstacle standing in the way of scaling business operations and meeting SLAs, yet technologies, such old ones as OCR and new ones as AI and ML, still can't automatically capture and extract data from roughly 20% of forms. Plus, a form is pretty much the only kind of document businesses need to process that still includes handwritten text. Think about prescriptions or signatures or free-form text in a box, which technology has not been able to read with much success as of yet. Errors will continue to be introduced by humans on forms, so they will continue to require human judgment to resolve. From a talent perspective, with many OCR and AI solutions struggling to read and extract data from documents and images that had any kind of damage prior to being scanned, organizations continue to settle by extracting data only from machine printed forms and then relying on staff to manually process any exceptions. These exceptions are the items that break the process, and any kind of quality issue here translates to an exception. So people are still required, talented people, to come into the process, whether it's to handle the exceptions or train AI and machine learning models. And if we consider security and privacy, failing at security and privacy issues continues and is difficult to manage. Processing millions of forms quickly and accurately while maintaining total privacy and security is hard to do. So how can new strategies help when processing forms? Now I'm going to hand it off to Susanna, who will cover the as-is of OCR solutions and how to go beyond using collective intelligence. Susanna?
Thank you very much, Peter. Hello, everybody. Yeah, you notice we're talking about not the app-based or web-based forms here, right? Because we're all thinking maybe one thing, why on earth are we still talking even about paper or something coming close to paper? Because there are still many use cases out there that require a different form of communication, and also there are the customers or the recipients of the form to consider. So we're here now talking about the other way. So that's not fully digital because that's a completely different topic and not covered today. So what happens today, and some of you here in the audience, you know a lot more probably than I do, but I've spent around 20 years or more in this industry now. And in general, what does happen? So somebody who is a recipient of the form downloads it or completes it as a PDF form, may have to print it because it has to be signed or completes it handwritten. Then very often today, if it's an end customer, this form is then scanned again with a mobile device. That's where some of the problems like Peter already talked about start. Right, the form is then sent back one way or another, even maybe by the mail or postal service to the business is processing it, and there somebody will either scan or convert that form. OCR, as we call it today in this webinar, is being applied to actually turn it into usable data, and then it goes into a loop of quality assurance because there would be potentially gaps. The gaps can be larger or smaller depending on the origin of the form, the format of the form, and of course the way it's being completed. But no matter what happens, there may be a gap of 50% or 5%. There is a gap that needs human intervention. And that's what we talk about here today to see where collective intelligence can make this a bit more streamlined. So the principle of collective intelligence is that if you look at the green line coming up, that's really your traditional OCR IDP solution. So when they're introduced, you get a very great fast result, fast rate of automation. At some point, it levels off. So this is a very faint red line you can see there. This means at that point, it becomes very expensive. It becomes also very time consuming to get to the next levels of automation percentage. And the gap remains. As I said, the gap can be various. It can be 99% already being captured. It can be 50% being captured. For example, if a form is handwritten, cursive handwritten even. And what to do with the gap. So today, traditional, that's where your staff that is, as Vida was saying, trying to not do mundane, repeatable tasks is being asked to do this. Some love it, some hate it. By the end of the day, it stops them from doing the value added work that you may want to do on the completed data. So this is where collective intelligence is coming into and thinking is helping to fill that gap in a different way. And it's combining, as you can see here, automatic learning or artificial intelligence concepts, as well as human intelligence in a crowd processing way and form. If you go to the next page, Peter, then I can just explain a bit more. So we at Scale Up, we are collective intelligence experts, and this is exactly what we do. So on the one hand side, we're using artificial intelligence to maximize the benefits. And here it's not a replacement of the great work the OCR or the tools are doing before, but it's really looking at the gaps remaining. So doing some specific things, maybe to look at the poor input quality to optimizing it, but also, of course, really extracting the data in a way and getting out a little bit more of automation and preparing it also for the human in the loop. Because the human in the loop here is done in a different way. It's done in the form of crowdsourcing. So crowdsourcing may mean different things to you, but what it means is it means involving a large amount of skilled workers across the globe in order to do a task that they are very highly skilled to do so, and that in a very compliant way and in a way that data security is very much enhanced. I come back to that later. I show you an example of why is the data security not just adhered to but also enhanced. So the across the crowd workers really are in, as I said, across the globe. At Scale Up, we have the luxury of working with around 2.3 million very talented people here that we are also, with the help of AI, help to engage and help to bring into the loop and help to work with on completing tasks. So as you can see, the number is very big. Of course, those people are not all the time working at all days or at any time of the day, but they are available 24/7 and they bring that agility in the loop. And it's a matter of collective intelligence is actually a means of how to bring the AI and the HI together so that jointly the benefit is greater than one or the other alone. And that's the principle behind it. But let's make it a bit more real and let's go to what does it mean for forms. So for forms, the same principle applies, combining the AI and HI for optimal automation results. So this is really bringing in whatever is required for the specific topic in the form is covering. As Peter was saying, a form can have different challenges. The one challenge it is of poor quality. So there is more challenge of actually making it readable in the first instance and making it processable. This can be as much as even a scaling effect. So the image was taken wrong. It was faxed, as Peter was saying. So the scale is going to be completely different. And some of the OCR technologies or IDP technologies out there rely on a form to be very much the same. So it could be skewing, there could be scaling. That's one challenge remaining. The other challenge is really, it could be handwriting. So it's a matter of how do you actually get handwriting out of and get optimal results out of that. It can be different languages. It can be tables, it can be nested tables. It can be different types of checkboxes. It can be recognizing, are there any notes, amendments being made outside of the boxes that have to be filled in, because very often that happens as well, and it can change sometimes the responses. There's things being crossed out. So it's making it automatic, but in a very intelligent way. And that's for that is combining AI and HI and the human intelligence very much being brought in for those last bits that the AI may not resolve automatically. Making that for forms 24/7, agile with a global crowd, but bringing that crowd in a very much compliant way. And that's being done in a way of microtasking. Today, we will not have chance to cover all the techniques that we would apply. So I would recommend to you, if you're interested in our further techniques, to look at our website, our previous recordings, and especially our YouTube explainer videos. They're around a minute long. So they could show you a lot about how do we do things and in a very much easily understandable way, a very fast way, because today, as I say, we cannot cover that. But at the end of the day, what we do, we microtask. It means that we're breaking down the complexity of a form in this case, in order to then have very many humans in parallel helping with the tasks that are remaining for human in the loop intervention. So making it fast, but also a microtasking, making it very safe and even enhancing on the protection that a form may have, a data of a form may have, even within your own organization. So you can enhance on that, not only making sure it protects, but enhancing it in it. And the collective intelligence for forms, the promise it gives is actually it is there to cover any kind of input and create that actionable data out of it. So really fill that gap, whatever that gap is. So really the worst scenario topics to be covered, so that at the end of the day, the processes following thereafter can really start from the clean data. So you can replicate a fully digital way by bringing collective intelligence into the loop of your own processes and let it help with that. But if I go to the next page, then I can show you a little bit into the kind of techniques and why we apply them, and just on a very high level. Well, it starts actually at the input side, because input comes from many channels, and normalizing, as we would call it, is an important part. Normalizing meaning preparing it for the further processing. This could be the skewing. This could be the scaling. This could be the normalizing of a weird PDF input that could occur. But at the end of the day, it's also about normalizing some of the input challenges remaining for variants of forms. Because the next step that we would apply would be a classification. And when we later on hear about the real customer experience, their variants play a major role. So what are variants? This is really where you have an older version of a form, maybe. So you have a scenario where you have over the years different variants, or you may be an insurance company working with brokers. So while at the end of the day, you have the same data arriving, every one of your brokers may want to use their own form, and it varies, but it may still contain the same kind of information. The marketing department may put something out just to try out a variant of a form. So a form can be varying in not in layout, it can vary also in content, which very often means in a traditional way of working, a process may stop. So classification and identification of that is very important also for us to get these variants identified, because then our extraction that comes next can adapt automatically to those variants. So again, many of you may have experience in setting up so-called templates where you're setting up for each variant a strict rules around the format that's coming in. And of course, as you go into many variants or you go high volume, you have to go very fast to market. That may restrict the way you're working. So AI can help with that. And we use those approaches in order to actually identify those differences and adapt to them, learn, feedback the learning as well into the process, back to your own OCR as well, extract the relevant information. We also prepare at the same time those pieces that are needs the human in the loop intervention, the crowdsourcing, by mainly utilizing for forms snippets. And I'll show you an example in just a second. So a snippet means we are taking apart the form in snippets that are ripping the data out of context, allowing us then to distribute information to a wide audience that otherwise in context would be restricted. Think about maybe a prescription, think about a census form, think about an insurance claim of some sort. Then you would have data on there, which in combination of it all would be something that you would never consider giving out externally. But in the snippet format, that's something then you can be not distributing and be sure it is secure. By having such a snippet, being a small fragment of a form, you can then really distribute it to thousands of people in parallel, so that the rapid processing is also assured and data can come back validated, and you can even within a very short period of time have more than one human in the loop, because having AI, having one human validating it may not still mean the data is correct. So there is a complex AI supported quality assurance loop also in there, which is then bringing other techniques within there, bringing other humans back in the loop to ensure that data is correct before it's being consolidated and delivered back to the system that you in that case have started with. So this whole microtasking, snippeting approach is really therefore allowing a lot of things to be happening in parallel and still having very, very fast time of turning things around, having so many benefits of that. So if you go to the next page, Peter, then I can just quickly show. This is a fake form. So just in case you're wondering, yeah, the town exists, but the form is absolutely fake, but it's very relevant to our real life customer experience after. So as you see here, typical form with many different things in it, a table, handwritten, some of the handwriting is in blocks, some of it would be more free form, allowing for a cursive handwriting to be filled in. So by microtasking, what do? We're creating snippets, which means with the help of AI, we're identifying the relevant data on a form and its variants. And we create snippets in the sense of a small piece of that form is being cut out, has its own identity thereafter, and is being handled now for the further processing. So AI has been applied before. We have now a understanding, is this something that a human needs to have a look at, yes or no? And if a human comes into the loop, it looks like that. You go to the next page, something very simple. So this is a very, very simple approach. So the task the crowd worker has to do with the help, of course, of AI in the background, is to complete the tasks here. So here it would be really a matter of, please capture that first name. So as you can see here, data is taken out of context. It is supported in the background with different techniques and lookups and validations and so on and so on. But at the end of the day, a crowd worker being engaged can do a very simple job, a very fast job, a very pointed job, just really focused job to get the data into a quality that can then be validated once again with the AI before it being consolidated. So having AI to help with a form to be normalized, classified, extracted in a relevant way, microtasks prepared, and then human and being brought in the loop to actually help with those last remaining tasks of validating the data is correct. You end up with data that's near 100% clean and allows you to go to a next process steps with your own staff in a guaranteed time with guaranteed quality and as and when you need it. So I think that is a lot of the theory, but now it's over to the practical side of things. And Peter, if you want to take over again and introduce Greg to us, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Susanna. So I'd like to introduce Craig Dodson. He's the Director of Financial Aid Solutions at Community Brands. Craig, how are you doing today? Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Peter. Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Excellent. So if it's okay, I'd just like you to first please introduce Community Brands, your role there, and a bit about the financial aid solutions you and your team bring to the market.
Sure. Happy to. Yeah. Community Brands is a connected network of software solutions that exclusively services nonprofit, not-for-profit organizations. We work with about 12 different solutions across our portfolio, and we work in settings that help manage our clients' really back office functions, right? So anything from, one of the things that we'll talk about is our financial aid solutions, but we also work through payment solutions, enrollment management, donor fundraising solutions, and things of that nature. So my role is our director, as you said, our director of financial aid solutions. So I oversee the operations of our three of our largest platforms here that specifically help assist families with the application for financial assistance to not only K-12 schools, but also to camp experiences, and really all sorts of anything that you would think about as like athletic, nonprofit. Think of summer camps, think of those soccer clubs that you join and things of that nature. So anything that families would be seeking some type of financial assistance for.
Wonderful. That's a great summary. Thank you. For us, and oftentimes on these webinars, having examples and, having some way to bring something to life with an example is always great. If you could share with us some of the types of forms, which is the topic of the day, that you require data from to feed these processes for financial aid and the packages that you're working on, that would be great to hear.
Yeah, for sure. Forms. I mean, it's almost overwhelming at times, the number of forms that we work across, right? So I know that you shared some examples of some of the tax forms, but that's the kind of stuff that we deal with, right? So anything that helps our clients get a better picture of what a family's assets, debts, really their ability to contribute financially to the experience that I mentioned earlier that they may be applying for. So some tangible examples would be W-2s, 1040 tax transcripts, business tax documents, bank documentation, mortgage documentation, demographic forms, really the whole gamut of all of that. And as you can imagine, we work with families across the United States and abroad. So we're not only working with those singular federal tax forms, but forms from every single state and other locations as well.
Imagine that there's changes year over year, and there's a lot of updates made to these forms, including states, local jurisdictions, et cetera. So there's that to consider, but also I'm sure, you have busy seasons, fluctuations in volumes. How do you handle that aspect of it? I mean, you have these applications coming in probably all year, but are there seasons that are more heavy, and what do you do in that moment?
Yeah, we do see really a couple of different peaks, right? So if you think about, within our client base, I mentioned schools. So there's certainly the cyclical nature of the academic year of most schools, right? So when families are applying for financial assistance to the educational options that they're considering, most of that is coming throughout the late winter timeframe. So thinking of kind of November through April, right? But then, like I also said, we also have another large client base that is, summer camps, athletic programs, and things of that nature. So we see another peak again, kind of that right as one is winding down, the next one is picking back up. So, they very much are cyclical in that nature with extreme peaks and valleys as well. yeah, certainly from year to year, to answer your question, there's every single state out there that I mentioned that we work with is going to be updating different documents and whatnot as they go through it.
So that's, super helpful to hear, because I think that's pretty common across many of the people listening today and working with BPOs as well. That type of customer or engagements that we have. They have peaks and they have to handle that workforce changes, and then they also have to get the responses back quickly. We could talk about that here in a minute, but one other question I had before that would be, the sensitive nature of the information that you're getting from the applicants. How important, and we talked about earlier in the presentation here, but securing applicants' personal data, their bank information, et cetera. How do you ensure that privacy? And how important, and I think I know the answer already, but it's clearly important, but put it in your terms, how important that is to community brands.
Yeah. You're spot on. I often tell, when I work with clients, that we're dealing with the most sensitive information that families have, right? It's quite literally, as you heard me list off the different documents, it's everything about their financial background. And as you can imagine too, not only from our clients, but also from their applicants that are utilizing the platform, we often get questions, and we appreciate that we get a lot of questions about how is my data kept secure. So we go to great lengths to layer in as many different types of security as we possibly can. We're fortunate on one side that our platforms sit on top of Salesforce, which is certainly an industry leading, in terms of security. But I think that's also one of the other great aspects of, when we began our partnership with you, was having that extra layer of security that's really breaking down all of the data, because we wanted to make sure that there was no singular chance with any individuals having access to everything that a family may be submitting. And so that's something that we have really found beneficial. And actually, one of the interesting things is when we first, began this partnership, we expected to actually have some pushback in that regard. We expected there to be sort of this, well, wait a second, you're breaking down all my data and you're going through this, but the reaction from our clients has been quite the opposite, in that they love to hear that there are information is being broken down into hundreds and hundreds of bits, right? And that extra layer of security is certainly something that assists us in our conversations.
Wonderful. That's super helpful and informative. So, with all the topics that you've touched on, so let's say the variations or variability of the different jurisdictions, federal, state, local, of the types of documents, the changes year over year, the fluctuations and the peak seasons, and you just touched on security. How has, if you could summarize how collective intelligence and the approach has helped with that, your mission of offering financial aid response times, let's say, how has it helped with the speed, the accuracy, those types of things for you?
Yeah, I think that, that's what initially, encouraged us to look for a new solution to that, right? Because the speed in operation was always being stressed, especially, as you can imagine, when I was thinking a lot about what you were sharing earlier in terms of the talent war, right? And sort of the monotonous of the elimination of monotonous tasks. So certainly, we're not unique. I'm sure that most individuals, most organizations across the country are dealing with that in some way, shape, or form. And it's something we've always dealt with. As exciting and as excited as I get about tax documentation in my role, I don't imagine that everybody gets that excited. And so, so first off, finding and maintaining a staff pool with, like I said, extreme peaks and extreme valleys was incredibly challenging for us. So there was that piece. In addition to that, it, like I already mentioned, the layer of security that we wanted to add in, and then just being able to maintain compliance with all of the different bodies who have to maintain compliance and who are audited by, in terms of the different federal and state agencies. So it was really all of those things that came into play. My point being that what we found is that we were able to streamline in what was normally a a 7 to 10 day process and move that down to really about a 48-hour process. So we cut out a significant amount of lag time with the processing of our information and data that's coming in. We'll, in any given year, we'll process somewhere between 125,000 on the low end to 175, 180,000 financial aid applications. And with that, as you can imagine, there's probably upwards of 1 to 1.5 million documents that come in. And so that's just a lot of stuff. And it took a lot of time in a very simplistic way to get through. And we also dealt with the trials and tribulations of OCR. And quite frankly, we spent so much more time fixing things through OCR than we did actually working through it, right? And getting the work done. So yeah, what we saw was the elimination of a significant amount of time. Like I said, 7 to 10 days down to typically a 48-hour turnaround in terms of our ability to process. So certainly maximize there. Second is that, inevitably with the way that we tried to staff for peaks and valleys, we just couldn't find a really successful way to do it. And, and we kept finding that at just the wrong time every year, we would see staff turnover. And it got to be a significant challenge. And so, inevitably we would see ebbs and flows in terms of our ability to meet customers' needs. And so certainly the efficiencies gained there, very strong. And, not insignificant is that through this partnership and the utilization of the platform, what it allows us to do is to keep our direct employees focused on direct service to clients. Right. And we've really seen, I think, some pretty strong correlations with our client retention as a result of that.
And the employees themselves, their response has been generally positive as well.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you eliminate the, I mean, I think like we're all
kind of a leading question, maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reality. I mean, I think all of us accept the fact that there's parts of our roles in any job that you have, regardless of title or role or responsibility, that's monotonous. Sure. But anytime you can eliminate some or in some cases significant portions of that, quite frankly, it's going to lead to employees that are not only happier but more engaged and frankly more productive.
Excellent. Well, this has been very interesting, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us and share your story. We look forward to many more years of working together and expanding the solution with you together. And forms are going to continue to change, so we'll continue to change with you with that. So thank you, Craig, for your time.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Peter. Thanks.
All right. Have a good one.
So while you did that sink in, it was really great stuff there, Peter and Greg. It was fantastic. So just a last reminder before we wrap up with some of the impacts and some of the summary, that you still have a chance to ask some questions over the chats in LinkedIn and YouTube. So we will be going to the Q&A straight after as well. So you heard that, what did you learn today? Or hopefully learn today is that forms are still there. So forms are still here. And a world where it's not all digital is also there, meaning that forms still can pose a challenge. Traditional ways of working are great, but they leave a gap, and that gap can mean different things to your business by not meeting deadlines, by not being fast enough, by your customers and your staff not being satisfied. Collective intelligence, on the other hand, can help to fill that gap in a different way and to increase the processing time, making you more agile by being able to scale up and down. You see some of the impacts here on the slide that collective intelligence, the way Scale-up is doing, can be achieved. Like, for example, like 1,000 workers in 10 minutes up and down is something that we can provide and guarantee to you. So you can achieve a collective intelligence, faster turnaround time, and a 24/7 coverage. So really changing the way of processing and meeting your time to market in a much different way. It shows you that, when you use collective intelligence in your loop for your forms processing, that you can start your further down the line processing much faster and based on clean data. So the delivery of clean data, independent of the poor input that you may receive, or varying input that you may receive, is guaranteed and is assured in order then for your own staff, your own processes to really build upon that clean data guarantee and provide the benefits further down the line to your customers as you require them. This all comes into with, as well as not just scale, but also some savings that you can in most cases achieve that are very substantial and significant. So it is really a something that can aid your processing out there and making you more agile. But at the end of the day, it's all about customer satisfaction, employee and customer retention, and making you more agile, faster to the market, and more competitive at the end of the day. So the benefits go beyond what's here on the paper and can have benefits further down the line for your business. So as we go to the Q&A, just some information while we gather your questions up. So maybe go for the previous slide just for a second, Peter. So we are here for you after this webinar. So the recording of this webinar will be sent to you. Also, some of you who may not be able to be alive, welcome now, and you will listen to it now on the recording. So we give you some of our links that will be also in an email we send to you, or a message we send to you, so you can please reach out and we can explain a little bit more in depth with you and talk about your business case. Remember, on YouTube, look at our explainer videos, 1 minute of your time, just to really look into the topic, maybe of security, maybe of the techniques we're applying, maybe about what is crowdsourcing really, and utilize that resource as well. So we're looking forward to talking to you in the future. But let's have a look at some of the questions that came in. So we had one question that's about our crowd workers. So we talked about this big number of 2.3 million crowd workers globally. Peter, you want to talk a little bit about what we mean by that?
Sure. So our job is to define and publish tasks, right? So some of the ones we showed as the examples, some of the ones that we're talking about with Craig, and these crowd workers are not our employees, right? We publish these tasks and they pick them up. And they're anonymized, they're decontextualized. For example, the data entry that Susanna showed in the example. And so we, as Scale Hub, a policy is to pay above minimum wage. So we set the rates, and sort of our special sauce is taking apart the documents and putting it back together, as Susanna talked about the data fields and exactly what we're working on with community brands to give fast, accelerated results and highest level of quality signed, as an SLA document to our customers. So those crowd workers are available all the time. It's amazing. When we send out millions of documents in a day, they gobble it up. Even sometimes the more we put out there, or fields, let's say, the faster they go. So hopefully that answers the question. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, I would like to add just one thing for that.
Sure.
We're not just about, payment is one thing, and that's very important, being a fair pay employer in that sense, or company, because crowdsourcing can have a bad reputation, and it has had. There are some, as in every industry, there's some black sheep on the market, right? But the other thing that sets us apart at Scale Up is also inclusivity, and in our industry, that's called impact sourcing. So we try to make an impact also with the talent we are working, and really making it very inclusive of location and of anything else that may set a worker apart. And that's also something very, very close to our heart that we are. And one of the previous recording talks about that. So if you look at our recordings, we had one of our partners in that region, one of our crowd grouping, talking about the impact we're making also in the social element of it.
And I'll add another point, if that's okay. The geographic, framework of what we can approach too. So for example, if tasks are needed to be processed in the US market only, or in Europe for GDPR concerns, that's another approach. So we have many different ways to reach different crowds or contain what type of crowd you want, as another option.
Yeah, we got some more questions, Peter. Some getting a bit more technical now. So the one, and then maybe take this just as a completely different subject. Have there been recent developments in the area of handwriting recognition? Wait, should I start with that one?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so yes, is the answer. Very impressive improvements. So the AI has been helping with that, and the AI-based OCR, ICR, whatever I want to call that, is on the way forward. So that their even cursive handwriting can be recognized to a level that was even not dreamt of maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But there is always a but with that. It's not near 100% yet. There are still many gaps. It's much better than it was, but it's improving all the time. But there are gaps, and those of you who are working with AI technology also know that some new changes come in. AI is very wrong, very right, sorry, or very wrong. So the confidence levels that you would expect with the traditional OCR technologies, for example, where it says, the technology tells you, I was so much confident that I've got the right thing. And AI talks to you differently. So this is a big part of what we do, for example, actually interpreting what the AI tries to tell us. So to we know that is I'm 100% confident or 90% confident, does it really mean it's right? Or are we introducing some errors down the line? And that's again where the human in loop comes into it to build up the experience. So great developments, some changes remaining. It's probably the simple answer.
Yeah, and one point too is even if it's doing a really perfect job or close to perfect with the handwriting recognition, as we talked about earlier, we take data as VIP data, and it needs to have a human to look at it to ensure that what is being put into the system is completely accurate. Because think about cursive handwriting, it could be one letter off, and that could cause problems downstream.
Yeah, so I think we're going to run out of time. Maybe this is a nice approach summary question. So someone asked, can you please summarize what makes crowdsourcing so suitable for forms processing? Just summarize it once more, I guess. Peter.
Yeah, I would say it makes what's so suitable about it is the ability to scale quickly with crowdsourcing, even and have the accuracy and the speed to get the results back 100%. And so forms are in effect a perfect use case, let's say, because of the structured nature of them, that we as crowdsourcing or as Scale Hub and collective intelligence more accurately can deliver stellar, pristine results quickly and accuritely.
Yeah, so no language barriers either. So I think that's another question I see, which we won't be able to have time to cover now, because we're going to close to the time we promised to be at. But the language side of it. So we are dealing with a lot of situations of different markets across the world, where even on one form you have more than one language. You have more than not just language, but also character set. Yeah, if you think about, we have whatever, different kinds of character sets out in the world, usually combined with English, and the form very nicely mixed in both. And that's where some of the technology, and also, of course, some of the staff working on that can come to their limits. So it's another nice way of bringing in that kind of knowledge to get the data cleaned up.
Absolutely.
Right. I think that should be it, Peter. So if you want to wrap it up for us for today.
Yeah, just thank you everybody for your time, and people watching in the future. Thank you for taking the time, and we also want to thank Craig Dodson for joining us, and look forward to more webinars in the coming months. Thank you, and everybody have a great rest of your summer.
Bye bye.